boogeyman is a legend told in ancient myths and stories of an entity that lurks in the shadows and attacks disobedient kids. These two girls were coming home late at night from a party when this happens.
Por eso no dejé de grabar.
Espérate, güey. ¿Qué pedo, güey? ¿Qué pedo con ese vato? ¿Qué pedo, güey? Buenas noches. ¿Qué pedo, güey? Ay, camínale rápido, güey. Hola, verga. ¿Qué pedo, güey?
They continue recording because they know things aren't right. When they get home, this thing is already there and it starts pacing up towards them. This is what happens next.
Vamos acá cerca de la casa, no hay pedo. Ay, no mames, mames.
Aquí comenzó a correr hacia nosotras.
No, me pone.
Entró a la casa, pero no estaba solo.
They go about locking all the doors in hopes that things are going to be sorted out. This
Está dentro. Está dentro, güey. No, güey, métete al cuarto, güey. Métete al cuarto, güey. Métete al cuarto.
This thing is absolutely everywhere. It doesn't seem like it's a human being of sort. I'm not too sure. You can see it's here, it's there. Well, they did what anyone would do and they locked themselves in the bathroom in hopes of calling a few friends that would come over and help them out. When they do, these friends actually come over quite fast. And when they get there, they get out of the bathroom and all of the furniture in the living room is messed up. Well, until things start moving on their own. And this is what happens.
Es que, pero ahorita se escuchó cosas y yo.
Aquí es cuando nos dimos cuenta que lo que nos seguía no era de este mundo.
Well, they sit down to call the police. And when they, just moments before they do, a friend of theirs starts screaming. When they get there, their friend isn't there anymore.
¿Qué pasó, güey? ¿Qué pasó, güey? ¿Qué pasó, güey? ¿Qué pasó? Güey, ¿estás bien? ¿Qué pasó? Güey, ¿quién es? Güey, no, güey, no.
I have to say, I feel like this is absolutely fake. The guy's behavior at the beginning of the clip just looks like someone who knows they're being filmed and they're trying to look creepy for the video. It would appear that everywhere they turn, this thing is standing there looking at them, like it's either multiples of the same guy or multiple guys all wearing the same mask. But as much noise as these girls were making, if this was a group of men with bad intentions, they would have scared them away. Or at the very least, the guy that was looking at her through her bedroom window would have come into the house through the open window to try to shut them up. And how did this girl know exactly where to point the camera every time this guy shows up? It just doesn't seem believable to me.
Scientists have developed the world's first wireless mind control system.
Control mice with the flick of a switch. The mice were engineered with nanoparticle activated switches in their brains and then turning on a magnetic field. They're calling the tech magnetogenic interface for neurodynamics, or nanomind for short.
So what they use is called a viral vector. A viral vector is a virus, adreno-associated viruses. They change the RNA and DNA. That's how they program viruses. Once they get in, they can replicate. They inject this virus. The virus is used to deliver this genetic code, and then it mutates inside your brain. They're called ion channels. And then these ion channels, they stick to these magnetic nanoparticles. And then whenever there's a magnetic field, it kind of pulls a torque on those nanoparticles. And then the brain interprets that torque as activation for neurons. And then if they have multiple nanoparticles in other areas, and then they allow these magnetic fields to activate in certain sequences, certain neuron paths will open in certain patterns. Auditory or visual, your frontal lobe, which then will cause you to do certain activity or feel certain things. And it's done wirelessly. Imagine if all these drones sending magnetic pulses through your phone, through your smart glasses. And then they can have an EEG device in there to read the waves, verify that things are being changed, and then sending new pulses to activate more actions.
Oh yay, they finally figured it out. You can't tell me this wasn't their plan all along. I'm just some dude on the internet, and I've been saying for nearly 2 years now that the electromagnetic field is what we all needed to be focused on. And I came to that conclusion from watching TikTok videos. I have nowhere near the knowledge to understand this fully, but it's felt obvious to me since the start that that's the direction all this is headed in. I'm just glad I didn't drink the Kool-Aid during the pandemic. I'm betting a lot of people are already walking around with this in their system just waiting to be manipulated. And I'll never take anything they try to push on us in the future now that I know what kind of technologies they're working on. They tell us they're working on this stuff, but they never tell us how they plan to get it in everyone's system. That's evil. Hey, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to drop me a comment down below.
Unreal. The scariest state of emergency has just dropped, and children are not living past the age 1. We'll get into the articles in a minute, and of course it's not all children, but it has spiked significantly, so much as to inspire a state of emergency. You can see down here the southeast United States is where majority of it's happening at. This one area right here. Mississippi declares a public health emergency over infant deaths. Southern states declare health emergency over record number of babies dying before their first birthday. Of course, I can't give opinions on this kind of video, but they're all being regarded under the term of SIDS. Health officials are not sure what's driving the uptick, but blame a combination of problems transferring expectant mothers between hospitals, limited access to doctors, and rural travel times to care. But it's always been like that. That has not changed. Most of the state's infant deaths are linked to preterm birth, birth defects, low birth weight, birth defects, sudden infant death syndrome, the unexplained sudden death of a baby before their first birthday. There must be something new with the environment over the last few years that's causing all these side effects. Think in terms of energy and frequency. But the question remains, what is happening in this one particular area and overall?
According to the most current publicly available data, if you can trust it, that chart he showed at the beginning was from 2023. And from then until 2024, the rate across the entirety of the United States actually dropped by 2.5%. Now the provisional data is showing a slight increase for the year 2025 so far. But of course, 2025 is not over yet. However, in Mississippi specifically, going from 2023 to 2024, they saw a 9.7% increase. That is a massive jump, and they just haven't reported on the provisional numbers yet for Mississippi for the year 2025. But it's obviously increased more than that already, because they did just declare last month a public health emergency for the state of Mississippi. That's horrible. I used to live in Mississippi. My wife and I had one of our kids there. I'm betting we're all thinking the same thing, though, as to the cause. I'm betting it likely has something to do with people's status in regards to a decision that they made or didn't make back in 2020 and 2021. What do y'all think?
Egypt, not in Africa, it's actually in Kentucky. Mammoth Cave might have just proved that theory. For years, people have talked about the burial mounds that are all over Kentucky that look like pyramids. Then you can't forget that the Nile and the Mississippi also have very similar patterns. Obviously, I was like, let me look into this, let me see what I can find, and I started looking up all of the different things about Mammoth Cave. Zoom in and look at some of these names. In Egyptian mythology, they have this thing called the Duat, the realm of the dead, where you would encounter deities and dark entities, all the things. But you didn't just like poof show up there. It was a journey you had to take, and you had to go through rivers and lakes and pits and chambers, gates, and guess what has all of that? Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave is currently documented at being over 405 miles long, but they believe that it's actually a lot bigger than that. Pause to read this list that I've compared of what you had to have in the Duat and what is in Mammoth Cave. Not to mention the river Styx is in the Mammoth Cave. They have something called Cleopatra's Needle. Can't forget the ruins of Karnak. Kentucky even has a city called Cairo, but it's spelled out like Cairo. Let's talk about these mounds that look like pyramids, right? Egyptian pyramids, and then you've got this mound found in Kentucky. So a chamber in Mammoth Cave that was supposed to be like the giant's chamber or something. And there's also a rumor that back in the 1800s, they found giants in Kentucky in these mounds. They took them and somehow lost them. So let's just say that Kentucky does have the Egyptian underworld underneath it. I don't know if you know this, but Kentucky is like the top 3 in the entirety of the United States for most haunted locations. Pretty sure that I read per capita, it has more haunted houses or like buildings and structures than any other place in the US. Could that be because it's setting on top of an Egyptian underworld? I don't know. Kentucky is ancient, haunted, and maybe the real Egypt. I don't know.
I love this theory. I don't know that I can get on board with it completely, but there's certainly been a ton of evidence pointing to the possibility that the United States was the original ancient Egypt, or at the very least that the Egyptians were over here building things long before we inhabited the place. Just look at all the evidence that's been found and then covered up in the Grand Canyon. However, Ohio is actually the #1 most haunted state in the US. Kentucky isn't even second. That's Pennsylvania. I live in Kentucky, though, and every town you go to has some story about a local haunted house or a haunted forest or something, so maybe the internet's just not documenting all this stuff. What do y'all think, though? Does this steer you closer personally to the idea that the United States may have been the actual original location for Egypt? Personally, I think there's certainly enough evidence to keep you from just immediately writing off the theory, but I just can't think of a good reason as to why they would lie about this, unless of course they know a lot more about the history of Egypt and potentially its importance, and they're trying to hide that as well. They were certainly here building things, though, that I'm sure of.
In 1965, NASA quietly removed a set of documents from its public archives. They weren't about rockets, they weren't about space, they were about Antarctica. The files described something called anomalous readings, warm water lakes buried under miles of ice, strange magnetic distortions that threw off compasses, and photographs of landscapes that didn't match later satellite maps. Within months, the documents vanished. No explanation, no trace, just gone. Now here's where it gets strange. In the same year those files disappeared, the US military ended its last public expeditions to Antarctica. And soon after, the Antarctic Treaty was strengthened to make sure no independent nation, not even billionaires with private fleets, could explore freely. Think about that. The most lifeless frozen desert on Earth suddenly became the most restricted zone on the planet. Why? We're told it's to protect the environment, but let me ask you, when have world superpowers ever cared about the environment more than control? Here's a detail they don't teach in school. In 2009, scientists with Project Icebridge flew over Antarctica using radar to map the ground beneath the ice. Their findings didn't match the official maps drawn decades earlier. Massive mountain ranges appeared where there should have been flat ground. Lakes of liquid water were detected thousands of feet below, where the temperature should make that impossible. Some researchers even admitted the continent's magnetic field behaved like no other place on Earth. But instead of investigating further, data was locked down. The public never saw the raw results. And the few charts released, they don't line up with the older records from before the censorship began. Now ask yourself, if Earth were truly a spinning globe, why would Antarctica hold so many secrets? But if Earth is flat and Antarctica is not the bottom of the ball but the outermost boundary, suddenly everything makes sense. The missing documents, the contradictory maps, the locked down data. It all points to one conclusion. They aren't protecting Antarctica from us, they're protecting what lies beyond it. And maybe that's why NASA deleted those files, because the truth about Antarctica isn't about penguins. It's about the shape of our world and the limits of where we're allowed to go. So here's the real question. What did those missing pages show that was so dangerous? Entire nations agreed to bury it forever.
I would say that's certainly one conclusion you could come to, but I wouldn't say it's the only conclusion. I can think of several. They could be hiding more land with resources. They could be hiding other civilizations. They could be hiding evidence of the firmament. They could be up there building their own society where they can live lawlessly without having to worry about us peasants. There's a number of things they could be hiding up there. But one thing is for sure, with the way they treated that young kid that just landed his plane there a couple of months back, if you try to go there without a permission slip, they're going to bring the hammer down on you. I just wish that they would at least give us believable maps of the place. I don't believe for a second that it's as small as they claim it is. With all the shipping boats we've seen tracked there going hundreds of miles inland on what's supposed to be dry land, they've made it pretty obvious that they are lying about something.
The new smart meters are watching you. They sense all kinds of goings-on.
They see when you turn something on or off. They see how many watts your electric toothbrush pulls. They send the record of that little event over wireless networks, bouncing through your neighbor's smart meters, all the way to the power company, where they keep record of all your electric consumption volumes and patterns every minute of every day, and store that data forever on computers that you'll never get to see. That data shows when you are at home, shows when you're sleeping, shows when you're on vacation, when you have visitors, when you use a lamp, a power tool, some extra computers, and if you look like you're running a business out of your home. It even senses when you bootleg energy off the grid. Your smart meter data shows a vivid profile of your personal living patterns and whether or not you were at home on the night of the murder. This is not electrical metering. This is personal surveillance. This is a search without a warrant every day. This is your personal private life going straight out through your electric meter to the power company, to the government, to the police, to the insurance company, to anyone who cuts a deal with your power company to look at your life under a microscope. Sorry, it's actually worse than that. People who don't cut a deal can get your information too by simply intercepting the wireless signal spewing from the side of your house. Yes, smart meters are radio transmitters. Here's how you tell. This one is a 1-watt radio station licensed by the FCC. On this all-news radio station, every detail of your electrical life is shooting off to some institutional data center somewhere. Already, the police in Ohio, Texas, British Columbia, and places I don't know about are regularly using smart meter data to pinpoint grow houses, enforce business licenses, and punish people for doing things in the privacy of their own homes that you were not supposed to do, but they wouldn't even know you were doing if they weren't spying on you. Your power company apparently gets to sell your personal life story to whomever it wants. Any unusual power consumption pattern is considered probable cause to raid you for growing or running a computer server without a business license. This is about as big brother as it gets. Those friendly men with their truckload of smart meters are going door to door with something a little different than a Christmas carol. My personal opinion is that you and I need to demand that these things be taken off our homes. It is not possible for your power company to claim they have the right to install a surveillance device on your house. Smart meters are no different from wiretapping devices. And in case you didn't know, wiretapping is illegal in all 50 of the states and the federal territories. If you let your power company put a smart meter on your house, you may as well walk around all day with a Facebook helmet webcam pointed at yourself. They have convinced themselves installing smart meters is lawful by some reaching to the moon jive called implied consent. If you say they can change your meter, they pretend you consent even when you don't know really what they're doing. Here's a tip. Tell them they can't change your meter. They had no trouble billing you with the old meter. If you send them a notice by certified mail that they may not install a smart meter or any other surveillance device on your house, their implied consent goes out the window. I would do that if I were you. In fact, I did that, and I'm not even you. Those friendly guys on the sidewalk told me that they plan to put a smart meter on every house in America. If they do that, it will no longer be America.
So I dug around and I found that you can, depending on the electric company you're dealing with and what county you live in, request to have these things removed. You have to send a formal certified letter to your utility company. State your refusal to have a smart meter installed and demand that if they've already installed one, that it needs to be removed. I'm going to put a link to a sample letter that you can download and just put your own information in that you can send to your utility company to get these things removed if you're interested. My electric company hasn't pulled this crap yet, but they will be receiving a letter from me this week letting them know I will not be accepting one. I didn't want one because of the Pacific Palisades conspiracy, but this video right here gave me more than enough reasons to opt out of that nonsense. But guys and gals, that's the end of our clips for the day. I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to leave your comments on the videos those down below. But guys and gals, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.